Right now, there's a very specific kind of panic that hits Washington when a familiar tool stops working. Not because someone won an argument on TV, but because the mechanics of leverage start to fail. And today, the leverage story is about tariffs, the US dollar, and what happens when allies and markets stop treating American policy as predictable. In the last 24 hours, the U.S. Supreme Court handed the White House a major setback on tariffs, and President Trump responded by moving fast with a new temporary tariff tool, a 10% global levy under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That isn't internet rumor, that's in major reporting. Now here's the twist, because this is where the viral story took off. Online commentary is claiming a massive Brazil-Canada dollar bypass resource pact worth $270 billion was announced minutes ago. As of the time of recording, I cannot confirm that exact 270B clearinghouse claim in Tier 1 sources or official releases provided here, so we're going to treat it like what it is right now, an unconfirmed viral report, and then we're going to zoom out to what is verifiable and why the global system is still shifting under your feet. Don't blink, because even without the viral exaggerations, the verified part of this story can still hit your wallet. Let's lock the timeline. The Supreme Court ruling undercut the legal foundation the administration was using to set sweeping tariffs under IEPA. Reuters describes it as a landmark decision with major implications, and Trump's response was immediate. He repealed the struck tariffs and issued a proclamation imposing a new 10% duty for up to 150 days under Section 122, something that could face legal challenges. But it is the new move on the board. CNBC's reporting lines up on the key mechanics. Supreme Court strikes down the earlier approach. Trump announces a 10% global tariff, almost immediately, under Section 122, time limited, with other tariff tools still in play. This matters because it tells every investor and every allied government the same thing. Tariff policy may not be stabilizing. It's evolving into a rapid tactical cycle. And global systems hate tactical cycles. Now, about that viral Brazil breaks the dollar angle. The thumbnail you shared frames it as a definitive break. Brazil breaks the dollar and Trump shocked. That's powerful marketing. But marketing is not verification. Here's the clean forensic line. I can't verify from the provided Tier 1 sources in this workspace that Brazil and Canada signed a 270B legally binding resource pact that explicitly bypasses the US dollar through a new bilateral clearinghouse. What I can verify is that Canada and Brazil already have deepening diplomatic and trade ties, and Canada's official global affairs page describes an expanding strategic partnership and significant trade and investment relationships. That creates a real-world foundation for cooperation, but it does not confirm the viral clearinghouse claim. So why does a claim like this spread so fast? Because it fits the emotional truth of the moment. Allies and trading partners are actively discussing how to reduce exposure to unpredictable tariff cycles and politicized financial choke points. And Canada, under Prime Minister Mark Carney, has signaled in official messaging a focus on strategic autonomy. The Prime Minister's office release on Canada's defense industrial strategy is explicit about sovereignty and autonomy as organizing principles. Reuters coverage also frames Canada as trying to reduce reliance on U.S. supply channels in defense procurement, which signals a broader theme. Countries are stress-testing dependence. This is the environment where dollar bypass rumors thrive, because the incentive structure for alternatives is real, even when a specific headline claim is not yet proven. Let's look at the receipts, starting with what's verifiable and structural. Modern power is not just aircraft carriers and speeches. It's supply chains, energy inputs, industrial metals, and critical minerals. Canada-Brazil official trade data shows large two-way flows and major sectors: fertilizers, machinery, oil and gas opportunities, mining, infrastructure, real existing channels where supply chain strategy can be rewritten over time. So even if the viral 270B pact is overstated or premature, the underlying strategic idea is not crazy. If tariffs become unstable, partners will look for ways to route trade through frameworks that reduce vulnerability, whether that's diversified sourcing, regional agreements, or alternative settlement channels. Here's the part most people miss. The US dollar's power isn't just because America is big. It's because global trade and finance routes run through systems the US can influence: banks, settlement pipes, compliance networks. Now, analysis. If more trade starts settling through non-dollar channels, local currency settlement, offsetting swaps, or regional payment systems, US leverage becomes less automatic. Not gone, but less automatic. And in a world where Washington's tariff strategy is moving quickly, post-SCOTUS countries have more motivation to explore redundancy. Reuters explicitly notes the ruling upended leverage, and the response reintroduced uncertainty. That's the pressure that makes alternatives attractive. Let's be blunt. Politicians spin, markets price. The Reuters piece describes how the ruling and Trump's response injected renewed uncertainty, exactly the kind of uncertainty that changes risk premiums, reshapes investment decisions, and pushes partners to hedge. Now, I'm not going to tell you DXY plunged because of a Brazil-Canada pact, because we cannot verify that causal chain here. But the broader mechanism is real. Tariff volatility and legal ambiguity can move currency expectations and bond pricing, because investors care about rule stability. Here's receipt number 4. Silence or distance can be a signal. When policy becomes unpredictable, allies don't always clap back publicly. Often they do something quieter. They renegotiate exposure. They diversify procurement. They expand trade options. They build secondary routes. Canada's official messaging uses the language of sovereignty and autonomy. Reuters frames Canada reducing reliance on US arms. None of that is a break with America. It's a hedge, and hedges add up. This is the contrast that makes the competitor script so watchable. One leader sells dominance through pressure. The other sells resilience through architecture. The verified record here is simple. Trump was furious after the court ruling and immediately shifted to another tariff pathway, Section 122, designed to keep pressure on trade partners. That's not a moral judgment. That's the move. Carney, meanwhile, is publicly positioning Canada around strategic autonomy in official releases and policy direction. So even if the viral Brazil-Canada clearinghouse detail isn't proven, the logic of the moment is clear. Pressure produces counter-design. So what does this mean for you? Sitting at home, trying to pay bills, watching a story that sounds like geopolitical chess. Tariffs are not abstract. They are taxes embedded in prices, and they can change business decisions: where to build, where to source, where to invest. Reuters notes the Supreme Court decision called into question trade deals negotiated under tariff threats, and it left open questions about tariff revenue already collected from importers. That's not just politics, that's cost and uncertainty flowing into the real economy. CNBC also highlights the mechanics and the time limit of Section 122, which matters because temporary still changes behavior. Companies can't plan confidently when policy shifts in 150-day bursts, and when planning breaks, costs rise: hedging costs, inventory costs, financing costs. Those costs don't stay on corporate spreadsheets. They walk into your grocery bill, your car payment, your mortgage rate sensitivity, and your job security. Now we're at the 3 scenarios, and I'm going to keep these framed as possibilities, not predictions. Scenario A: managed escalation. The administration keeps the Section 122 10% tariff as a pressure bridge while it searches for other legal tariff routes. Markets stay tense but not broken. Businesses hedge, allies negotiate, everyone absorbs higher friction. This aligns with the Reuters framing of new period of high uncertainty and awaiting next moves. Scenario B: policy stacking and isolation risk. If multiple tariff authorities stack, temporary global tariffs plus targeted sector tools, partners accelerate diversification, procurement, trade corridors, settlement experimentation. Not anti-America, just risk management. Canada's sovereignty, autonomy language makes that posture easier to justify domestically. Scenario C: market-driven rollback pressure. If volatility rises, donor and market pressure can force calmer, narrower policy. Not because anyone lost, but because financing conditions and corporate planning demand stability. Even then, the memory remains. Partners learned they need backups. And here's the key point: even if the viral 270B claim is wrong, the trendline logic remains. Tariff uncertainty accelerates hedging behavior. So let me bring it home. The verified news is already enough to matter. The Supreme Court cut off one major tariff pathway, and Trump pivoted immediately to a new global 10% tariff under Section 122, reopening uncertainty for markets and partners. The viral claim, Brazil and Canada signing a $270 bypass pact, has not been verified here in Tier 1 or official sources, so you should treat it as unconfirmed until proven otherwise. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think this is smart leverage strategy from Washington, or do you think it accelerates the creation of alternatives faster than people realize? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want updates that separate confirmed reporting from viral claims, hit subscribe, because the mainstream cycle often moves slower than the market reality.